Chris. My name, thank you, Chris. My name is Reggie White. I'm an alcoholic. And I want to thank Ali and Teresa for having me out here. And thank everyone for coming out here and listening to me run my mouth again about this very exciting topic that we have this evening. And, I was thinking when I was talking to Chris, when I called her earlier, and I called her about an hour ago, and I said, Chris, I don't know what the hell I'm going to talk about. I've been here once before. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And then I thought about it. So through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Every time I come to this Step 11 meeting, and in most places when I hear talks about Step 11, or when I'm in anything about Step 11, it's about meditation. And to me, one of the things that saved me even much more than meditation was the prayer. It's always forget about the prayer and think about the meditation. Because I got my meditation from Polly Fiscal at this group. And that was the style. I actually do meditation for Teresa. Pretty much on a daily basis almost. Shocking, I know. But anyway, for me to talk about Step 11, I have to go back. Because to me, all the steps are interconnected. And everything is about having transformation. And I actually have to go back to my other lifetime, because I've had 2 lifetimes in Alcoholics Anonymous. Not only am I a cautionary tale, but I'm a tale of redemption here in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm proof that God does exist. And that even when I give up on myself, when everybody else gives up on me, when I believe that God gives up on me, God works for me even without my permission. And I'm able to just stay here one day at a time, even with just that. Matter of fact, God kept me alive when I was out there one day at a time. More so, he did so much more for me when I was out there than when I came back into the room. We're in right now in our Never Too Early Big Book Workshop. We are in the doctor's opinion. And what we were talking about recently is about that psychic change that's necessary, right? Doctor is talking about, he's explaining the nature of the physical nature of the disease, but he has to explain to other medical professionals about who we are as alcoholics. And in talking about who we are, and he says, how do they overcome this? And he said they have to undergo an entire psychic change. And I remember, because I'm able to transport myself back to the first time I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. I came in February 7th of 1987. And I opened that big book probably 10 months later when we started Never Too Early Big Book Workshop. And when I was started in the big book, when I really started in the big book, I read the doctor's opinion before. I read other things, but I kind of glossed over psychic change. But when I was reading it again, I confused it with Bill's white light experience, right? And I was thinking, psychic change. Where's my white light experience so I can have that psychic change? And I really found out about the psychic change when I started praying, because I had never prayed really, right? I prayed before. I've been praying all the time, like on Christmas Eve, please God, give me a bike or give me some skates or give me, something of my own, because we did board games and stuff, right? My mother raising 6 boys by herself. And always it would come up instead underwear and socks, right? Because we were poor. We were so poor. And so I'm mad at God already. You guys told me pray and then God would give me what I asked for. And that genie God wasn't working. I rubbed the genie and nothing would come out. Nothing came out the lamp. Already behind the 8 ball on this prayer thing, right? When I come in here and I start to get a little bit of an open mind, because you guys tell me what's wrong with me, right? So now I learn what's wrong with me about that. That was huge to me to find out about that allergy thing. But I wasn't just a bad guy. Because see, I knew that church stuff wasn't going to work for me. What I'm basically doing for you guys, right? I'm telling you my journey to God. Basically, that's what this whole deal is going to be about today. If you want a theme, if you want something like, that's what this is going to be about. How did I get to God? And so I started with that, right? Because I found out that I wasn't a bad guy, but that I was a sick guy. And that was a great start. And I went through all of that, and I started looking at what you guys did. I started looking at what Chris did. Really, let me be honest about it. I started looking at my brothers, Ralph and Ronald, because Ralph and Ronald came in here about 6 or 7 months ahead of me. And Ralph and Ronald, even I couldn't believe, right, that Chris with 24 years, 25 years, I can't believe that. I leave with however many years he got. Is somebody in here probably with 90 days? I couldn't believe that. But I look at my brothers, Ronald and Ralph, and I could see a transformation in them because I drank with them, I used with them. And then I could see the difference in them. I could see, it was clear to me. So I started to believe a little bit of what you guys were saying. But then you got to that part about God, and it's just so hard. I had so many prejudices. I thought it was a way of weak. I thought it was a way to hold us down. I thought it was a way of, I remember back to those prayers and getting nothing but underwear and socks. But then we went through those steps. We went through the first 4 steps, and then we did a 5th step. And I started to believe in God a little bit. When I did the 3rd step, prayer on my knees first time, I still wasn't believing. I wasn't believing. You know, we got down there. I remember the first time, and I'm holding hands, and I'm looking around. I'm all self-conscious. And we did that prayer, and I still didn't believe. Then I did that 4th and 5th step, and stuff started to happen a little bit differently. And then step 6 and 7 came, and then there was a problem. Because I skipped step 6 and 7 first time around. Because all it was, well, I actually did them. I looked in the book and said, okay, read this, sit for an hour. Well, I didn't sit for a whole hour. I could make myself sit for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then I did step 7, right? I read the step 7-step prayer. But basically, I skipped over 6 and 7, which in effect allowed me to skip over steps 10 and 11 later on down the line. That's why we don't skip steps, right? But I did an 8 and 9, I believe. I hardly remember the first time around. That was a long time ago. But I did an 8 and 9. And then I did 12. I did the hell out of 12, but I really skipped 10 and 11. I skipped 6 and 7, which allowed me to skip 10 and 11 because these are what I consider passive steps. I wasn't really accountable to anybody for those steps, right? And I had a great sobriety. Life got really good to me. Looking back in the rearview mirror, life got really good to me on the outside. I got a really great job. I made a whole lot of money. I got a great family. I got had my little girl, had my family. We had great Christmases. We had great times. Life was really, really good to me for a whole lot of years. Okay, and then the tragedy came, as a lot of you know, but in case there's somebody who doesn't know, my daughter got killed by a hospital. It was medical malpractice. She was sick for about 4 months in total agony. Then she died. And when she died, I totally lost it and shut down because I had stopped doing the things that had got me here. I'd stopped. We called 10 and 11 and 12 the maintenance steps. I wasn't doing any maintenance. I wasn't even doing the same things I had done before on step 12 because I was so busy working. I'm making a living. I'm doing the right things though. Who wouldn't want to reintegrate themselves into society? Why would it be a bad thing for me to be such a good boss to these people and make money and help people with that money I make and actually have my family and be a great dad and do all this good stuff with be a good family man and help and be good with all of my extended family? What could possibly be bad about that? But see, that's the difference in prayer and meditation. And well, that's the difference in a psychic chain, not having a psychic chain. That's what I found out later. And I'll get to that part. Because then after my little girl died, and I totally shut down, right? And I'm down for 16 years. I'm shut down. I don't get loaded for 11 months now. I don't do anything. No drinking, no using, no anything for 11 months. But I'm angry and I'm cursing God. I don't have a God in my life. I'm pissed off at God, right? See, Calvin, I know you know that feeling. I'm pissed off at God. I was sitting here and I was thinking, like, I listened to my friend Marilyn this morning. I had her out to speak at a meeting this morning, and Marilyn shared about losing her son, stayed in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. My friend Tina lost her son, stayed in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. See, we know what to do. when we lose, when we have those tragedies in our life. We go to more meetings. We call our sponsor. We call sponsees. We get in the middle of the herd till you guys can love us back to life. I could do none of that because my feet were not trained, because I skipped 6 and 7. I skipped 10 and 11. I was no longer doing 12. I was no longer doing anything. I got well. I got well. And this was not a conscious thing about getting well. It wasn't like I thought, oh, screw Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't have time. I'm doing 24-hour. I had 3 shifts working 8 hours a day. So I had 7 days a week, bringing that company back from Atlanta to LA. So I have 2 homes in 2 cities, and I'm back and forth. I didn't have time. Now, knowing what I know now, I would have made time. But at that time, I did the best I could. And that's what happened. I guess that's what God had me doing. And there was no God in my life. I'd stopped praying. Forget meditating. I wasn't even thinking about meditating. I had no patience for that. But I'd stopped praying. Here's the dirty little secret. I'd always been ashamed of prayer. Nobody ever saw me on my knees praying. I wouldn't get on my knees and pray in front of people. I was always ashamed of that. I always thought it was a way of weakness. I always did. And see, maybe that's the huge, like when I talked to a sponsee yesterday, and we were talking about this very subject, and I was explaining to her, like she was saying, how do you do the things you do, Reggie? How do you stay so spiritual? How do you make yourself do these things that are so hard, like do these amends? See, a lot of times it's easy for us to forget how hard it was to really do those amends the first time. Some of those amends, very first time when they were terrified, right? I mean, absolutely terrifying. And she's terrified. And some of the times I forget, and I try to push it, and I've learned to back off, because my experience can't be your experience. And what it came down to was surrender. See, when I came in here the first time, I came in here with a really high bottom, and I wasn't really that desperate. I thought I was desperate, but there's a difference. I really thought I was desperate. But when I stayed down for 16 years and I kept trying to come back here without God, when I kept trying to work this program, I kept going to rehab and then sneaking to meetings and going to meetings and getting some time together. And I could hold it together for a while, guys. I could hold it together, but I couldn't last. Keep going. I never would let God in. I didn't trust God. I hated God. I was pissed at God, very pissed at God. And I remember after those 16 years, and then one day in June of 2017, I surrendered. I surrendered out there in the streets. I didn't surrender in the fellowship. I didn't come in and start writing on step 1. Oh, I'm going to write, what does it take to really surrender, and write a whole bunch of stuff about step 1 or 2. No, I was sitting behind my mother's garage with a bottle in my hand. I remember about Ralph and Ronald always talk about how sneaky I am, right? And Rod, they say I'm sneaky. I'm a real sneaky alcoholic, right? I'm a guy who always thinks I'm sneaking and being crafty, and I'm coming around people acting like I'm sober, but I'm not, and all that. And I did. That was all absolutely true. But I remember that day when I was sitting behind that garage and I was crying. And I said to myself, I just can't do it. I can't make it back. I give up. Because I tried everything, man. I tried sneaking back to meetings. I tried rehab. I tried taking myself through the steps. I even tried going back to Never Too Early a couple of times, right? What I wouldn't try was God. I didn't trust God, because God let my little girl go like that, man. God let my little girl be in agony, in total agony. The last things that she ever knew in life were agony. I watched the light out her eyes. She waited for me when I came back, when they were putting the tubes in her, the intubator, and she waited for me and then reached her hand out. I watched the light go out. And I called my mom. I remember I was crying. I called my mom immediately. I said, Mom, I need you to pray. My mom pissed me off. Really pissed me the fuck off. She said, stop crying, be a man. And I was like, I hung up on her. And I guess that was everybody. It's everybody. I have to allow everybody the right to be wrong. She came up to the hospital and she pissed me off again. She started praying. She said, me and my wife said, held on, and she said, God, your will be done. Your will. Give us the courage to walk through. Give us the strength to walk through whatever your will is on this. I was pissed. Why aren't you praying to save my little girl? Who wouldn't want a little girl to live? Who wouldn't want her to live? And I was mad. That was when and I started praying. God, take my life, save my little girl. She forget mom what she talked about. When mom told the hell with what she talking about. Let me step in, God. God, what she talking about? Never mind. God, take my life, save her. And I meant that with everything in me. Everything in me. And then they took my little girl and I shut down. I was gone. That's when I was gone for 6 years. I lasted 11 months though before I relapsed, before I went and used again, before I drank. And I didn't know I was going to be down. But when again, after those 16 years, and I'm sitting behind that garage, and I say to myself, I really can't do it. And I didn't ask God for help. I didn't ask God for help. And that surrender, you know, you always hear that God help me. I didn't say God help me. Excuse me, I can't curse. Sorry about that, Ali. But it was like F God. You know, it's what I thought was I just give up. Give up. I can't, I'm gonna die. I didn't even think I'm gonna die like this. I said, God won't let me die. I tried to commit suicide for God. They pronounced me dead on arrival. God pulled me back. So I'm not gonna be able to die. You won't let me die. I can't get sober. This is all I'm gonna be the rest of my life. Somebody that I wouldn't even, you know, I never ever thought I would be. I'm supposed to be the guy to help people. I'm supposed to be the guy that people look for guidance and help. And that was always me, all my life, all my life. And now here I am, and I'm like, I can't even look you in the eye. I can't look you in the eye. And so I remember when I surrendered, I thought to myself, I'm not going to hide anymore who I am or what I'm doing. I don't care who knows what I'm doing. And I used to sneak back behind that garage and drink and use right behind that garage. I remember walking back from behind that garage. I didn't care. I didn't normally I'd be peeking, looking to see, make sure nobody's. I didn't care. I totally surrendered and didn't care. And within 2 to 3 days, God had my so-called girlfriend steal my mother's car out of her driveway. And this is the absolute worst day of my life again. When Rod, my baby brother, kicked that door open talking about where's Mom's car and you got to get out of my mother's house right now. That was the light. I didn't know it was light at the tunnel. I thought I was deeper in the tunnel. I thought this is never end. And from that day to this, I've not been done. From that date. And what I did when I got to that I called Rico. That was on a Monday. Rico had me inactive by Wednesday, and I was walking those grounds with my head down. And that's when Rico walked up on me and told me I was a child of God. I didn't have a right to walk with my head down. And he told me to put my head up. And I did that one thing that I needed to do. I said, would you please take me through steps? And I'd asked somebody for help. I hadn't asked anybody for help in 20 years. And he took me through the step. Well, our racing through step. He tried to keep up with me going through step. He couldn't keep up with me. I was, God had lit a fire under me. And God works in my life without my permission. I hadn't asked him to come back in. I hadn't asked him to come back in yet. He's pouring grace. I don't even know. I don't even know. All it took was that surrender. When I surrender, finally, that I can't do it. And then I walk back in never too early. I always say I walk back never too early. We were right on the third step prayer. We weren't. That was the next week. At first, I walked back in never too early, and then something else pivotal happened. See, everything's about a pivot point. It's all about pivot point. Everything turned. And I go in that meeting. Everybody's so happy to see me. I walked back in and it was home. All over, it was home. And I'd always said I wasn't going to go back in with less than a year because I had my pride and integrity. Well, I walked back in. What happened that week, the next week was the third step prayer, but what happened that week, Ronald, my brother Ronald, asked this guy, Angel, he said, can you take Reggie to a meeting tonight? Because he's just on the bus, can't drive. See, I'm legally blind. Not glaucoma. God gave me glaucoma too. Anyway, he said, just take him to a meeting because he can't go to, he can't drive. Just take him to one tonight. And Angel took me to a meeting that night. And then he asked me if I wanted to go the next night, and we went. Then the next night, and we went. And for the next 2 years, he asked me, did I want to go to a meeting? And I said, yes, every single night. And after 2 years, he told me, he said, you know that your brother asked me to ask you to go to a meeting? I didn't know. And he said, I kept asking you. I thought you wouldn't go. He said, I thought you quit after about a week. I didn't think you last more than a week. And it turned out, my friend Angel told me he was having a crisis. He said he had stopped going to AA. He happened to go to the workshop. He had stopped going to meetings. And then he stopped leaving. And because we started, now it's me and him and then one other buddy, and we're reinvigorating, you know, and that's God doing for me without my permission. So then the third step prayer came. We're in that circle holding hands. I did not believe. I was pissed off doing the third step prayer. I just didn't, I had no belief that God could do anything in my life. No belief. But I believe that you guys believe. That much I believe. I knew. I looked. And I knew you guys believed. And that was enough. And then they said, Ralph, we always talk about that. We always talk about that. If you have justified anger, and I had as justified anger as anybody could have. And we did that, and it was, do you want to be right or do you want to be free? And I chose freedom. And then we did the fourth step, and I put God on that fourth step. And I remember I was sitting in the middle of the workshop. I didn't do it at the fifth step with Rico. We were going through, we go through and never too early. We go through, like, somebody go through a whole reset, take it all the way across the columns. And I took mine across the column. And I remember going through all that. Then it was like about 15 years of that, you know, and when I looked up, people were crying all over the room. And my wife, my ex-wife, was going out of the room, being escorted out, and people crying. And it was a spiritual moment. And that's when I finally got attached back. That's where I met God, right there. And never too early. Went across the column. putting him on that 4-step. That's what I met God. And so then we did the 5th step, me and Rico, and I did 6 and 7 because I'm not going to get caught slipping again, right? Never again. Never again. So I do 6 and 7. And then 8 and 9 is where I really start to have the spiritual experience. Because by this point, I'm torn down every relationship that I've ever had in my life. 16 years down like that. And I had some really, 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 really hard events. And I made another pivot point on the 8th step before I got to the 9th step. Because all of a sudden, I realized I didn't give a shit about what happened to me. All I cared about is you guys. All I cared about is making things. I really, honestly, you know how some people talk about, well, I'm looking for the promises. I didn't care. I didn't care. I realized somewhere in that 4th and 5th and 6th, and somewhere in there, I stopped worrying about me. I didn't give. Do you know that from that point to this point, I haven't cared about me? I don't worry about me. That's why, like when you ask people subjects, I don't care. God's gonna show. I have faith. God's gonna show all the time, every time. I don't. Not like a theory. This is just it's gonna happen. He won't show up the way I want him to all the time, or when I want him to, but you can be damn sure he's gonna show up. He's gonna show up all the time. Anyway, I got to 8 and 9. 9 hard. Leap of faith, leap of faith, leap of faith. Just doing them. And they kept getting it was so good. That's why it's hard for me when I talk to Sonic team. It's hard for me to see them stall at 9. I can get them, we get to 8, we write up the cards, we do those amends. Okay, come on, let's do them. And they're scared. Sometimes I have to remember we're all on the same path, right? But it's broad. That we walk it in a different way. And sometimes they walking behind me, some walking in front, but I have to do it their way. I can't push them. I can't push them. I have to allow people to have their own experience. And sometimes it's tough for me to remember that because it's been so easy for me. It's been so easy for me. That's what surrender is. When I surrender, it's easy. When I take it back, it's hard. I've never taken it back. This has been easy. All of this has been easy, God. It seemed crazy to say that to you. The first time around, I was making, after a year of sobriety, well into 6 figures. 6 departments, 250 employees. I had company car. It was an expense account. I had houses in 2 cities. I had all the stuff. I had money. I had a great family. I had all this stuff. This time around, I have me. I have Darkness, who was my cat. And I have God. I'm not in a relationship. Maybe that's why I'm so happy and peaceful. I don't have a car, so I keep money because I don't have a car to break down on me and spend money on it. You know, what I have is peace. What I have is peace. What I have is peace. I have happiness. My life is full. I'm never bored because all I do is care about you guys. And God comes in and everything just, like I tell you, it's easy. It's easy. Some of the times I would think, well, maybe I shouldn't say it's easy. I'm going to jinx it. Man, are you kidding me? God has said, if I got a God in my life, I ain't worried about anything. You know, I don't worry about superstition. I don't worry about stuff like that. And I don't mind telling you the stuff is easy in my life because it's not easy because of me. I don't mind telling you that my sobriety is good, my life is good, everything is good, because it's all about the fact that I have a God in my life that does everything for me as long as I do everything. It's just that simple. I keep it real simple. Like in the morning when I meditate, Teresa, and I do meditate. Oh, I keep it so simple. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who's still sick. The answers will come. Your own houses and that's all I ask. The prayer. I do my regular prayer as soon as I get up. First thing, turn my life over to him, all that. But it's more the prayer than the meditation. We always talk about the meditation, oh yeah, how many minutes when I meditate? Whatever I meditate, I meditate. But the prayer, what can I do each day? What can I do today, God, for a man who's still sick? If it's your will. If it's your will, what can I do today for a man who's still sick? Keep it simple. Keep it simple, man. And Jesus, how long have I been talking? How long am I supposed to talk? I don't know. Seriously. Because I could keep running my mouth.
You got 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes. Okay, good. So we're talking about step 11. But what we really talking about, the whole thing, guys, to me, when I got to step 3, I got on my knees. I said, I'm going to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. Turn my will and my life over. Period. End of story. Everything else has been doing something, but it's been a pivot to turn away from me. Yeah, you fooled me on the first step. You let me write that saying, oh, Teresa did this to me. Ali did this to me. Calvin definitely did this to me. And so you fooled me, right? But then I turned, I pivoted over to now, looking at my part, looking at my fears, looking at what I did. And now, and from that point forward, it's all been a pivot, turning away from me in step 5, away in 4 and 5, turning to God in step 6 and 7. People say, oh, I'm working on my character defects. You in trouble if you working on them. I let God do mine. God has done mine. And yeah, I still got them, but God is making it better. God has made it better. 6 and 7. I asked God to help to do that, to remove my character defects. Then in 8 and 9, I pivot again away from me. It's always away from me to do something for you guys. And like I said, it takes me all the way back to that psychic change that I talked about way back in the doctor's opinion. Way back in the doctor's opinion. About that psychic change, that same thing that Freud talked about in I think it's in There Is a Solution when he was talking to what's his name? You guys know the guy. Doesn't matter, not Freud anyway. It was the other guy. I'm messing them up, but you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. When I'm talking about the body and the psychic change, when I'm talking about the mind and the psychic change. Well, that whole psychic change for me is when I look at the world differently, it looks back differently at me. When I change my perception, when I change my actions, it's all about everything I'm doing is different than the way I did it before. I no longer worry about Reggie White. Reggie White is, like Teresa Inc. under new management. Reggie White is out of business. This is God's business now. This is God. I don't even matter. I don't worry about me. I've turned away from being selfish and turned to being selfless. I've turned away my actions from being all worried about me to just my actions doing for you guys. I have to make sure I'm not slipping on a daily basis. That's why I send these meetings out every single day. And I've been doing that since the pandemic because I could no longer go out and find people to work with, and my prayers are mostly for other people, my prayers. And in my meditation, when I do my meditation, I sit and I pray and I ask God, what can I do that day for the man who's still sick, if it's his will. And I sit and I meditate and then I write down who popped in my mind. I remember, Teresa, you told me that thoughts that pop in my mind, write them down. Catch them when they go by. And I write those down. And then I write down gratitude, all about gratitude, what I'm thankful for. And so I go into my day with gratitude, and I go into my day with an early morning meeting to set my day off. And then I go into my day just looking to see what God's will is for me. I want to thank you guys for inviting me out. I know that this was not a typical 11-step talk. My name's Reggie White. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you for allowing me to share.